Hey, good afternoon, everybody. We're about to start another panel with Matt Allison, but I wanted to update everybody. We've had a really great show so far today. I think we've doubled our sales since the 11 o'clock art drop. I don't have all the figures in front of me, but don't forget, I will be online at 8 o'clock tonight doing a recap for the show. So we'll cover all the data that I can as far as art sales and commissions that have gone out. And but overall, really great turnout today. And I couldn't be happier with the way things are working out so far. But my guest of the hour is a artist who I own a piece of art from, bought at Comic Art Live. I believe probably it was a year ago, I believe, but I'll check the art date in a minute. But the artist is Matthew Allison from Inky Knuckles. How you doing, Matt?
I'm good. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic, man. I mean, yesterday I was at this point, I just wanted to go to bed. I felt like I'd been up for 2 or 3 straight days, but yeah, I've got my second win today.
Nice. Yeah, I did some meditation before I jumped on with you, so
It's always good
clear-headed.
Yeah. Well, well, what did I have today? I drank a few cappuccinos from Starbucks, so I'm wired and ready to go.
Nice.
But yeah, we were talking earlier. I have not ever met you at a show, and that's I'm kind of disappointed about that. But you were mentioning just now that you're going to be in the Florida area sometime in late winter, early spring. So what show is that? I'm really curious. I want to write it down right now.
It's Blackbird. Now I can't think of the full name of their shop, but there's a shop in Maitland, Florida called Blackbird, and it's a coffee shop / comic book store. It's been open for a few years. Enzo Garza, who does Gut Ghost, was one of the people that helped start it. I think he's doing art full time now, so he's not part of the convention. But the other people that own the shop, they were going to start this right before the pandemic. Of course, that fell through. So 2023 is going to be their inaugural full version. They've been doing mini versions of it, so this is going to be the actual main event. And I think it's the first weekend in March.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look them up. I have not heard of that shop, but now that I'm here, I want to get out to as many shows as I possibly can, or any kind of opportunities to hang out and with fellow collectors and meet some artists. So sweet. And the great thing is literally, I bet you that's not 40 minutes from my house. So
yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, definitely. My buddy Aaron Conley, who does Sabertooth Swordsman, he lives in Lakeland, Florida. So I'm going to spend some time with him, and then he and I will be tabling at the show.
Well, that is awesome. And hey, I can say, I should show this off. My one piece of art from you. I can share my screen, and it was picked up a year ago from Cam when he was exhibiting here. So let's see, switch over to that. There we go.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yep, that was me.
Cool.
Man, you can't go wrong with a super scroll, right?
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah.
And it's great to draw stuff like that. Anytime you get to look at Jack Kirby art for reference, you can't go wrong.
No, I saw it, and it was available a little bit long. I'm like, I always give people a first chance. It's tough. Like, all right, I'll wait an hour. I'll wait like 2 hours. All right, nope, time's up. I get to buy it. So I was happy to get that one, but ever since I saw it, I love your artwork. It has this a very refined feel to it, but also has a very underground feel to it. When I look at your work, and that's what really I appreciate the most about it. I love your inking technique. I mean, it has kind of almost like I don't want to call it it's almost like a scratchboardy feel in with the way you put your lines down. They're so tight, so consistent that almost doesn't seem possible. I mean, I went to art school. I've done a little bit of inking myself, and I look at your work and I'm like, man, you have to be a very meticulous, inker when you're doing the line work that you're doing. Or am I completely wrong? Are you just like as fluid and how would you
It's a strange thing. I mean, I was looking at a lot of Jim Woodring. His feathering technique in the 90s, and I was trying to mimic that, but I wasn't using the same materials he was using. He was using a pen nib. I was using microns. I've always used microns, and so I was basically drawing what looked like either sable brush feathering or pen nib feathering, but I was doing it with a micron, and then eventually got to the point where I was able to just make the micron do that. as opposed to sit and basically draw a triangle and then fill
Yeah.
it in. The dumbest way to ink, the stupidest way to ink. I don't recommend it to anybody.
Right. I mean, the way you're describing it, it just sounds like you're giving yourself 2 or 3 times the amount of work.
Initially, yeah, it's not that way anymore, but yeah, that used to be the case.
Well, that's good that you've changed a little bit. I can't even imagine what that would have been like. So, a lot of people have, many different, I think, of, interests of yours. I mean, what's some of your favorite work that you've done in the last 5 years? Because I always go over to Campsite, to see like new updates, and I love seeing commission pieces that you've done. But, for you publishing wise, I mean, or what are you most excited about that you've in your career? I mean, is it Cankor? Or is it, what would you characterize as something that you've enjoyed the most in the last few years, especially since the pandemic?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I did a one shot called Anamnesis. It was a Cankor one shot, and it's in the collected edition that I put out earlier this year. And it was a story that just came together. It's a blur. Like, I honestly don't remember how I even started it. I had a couple of images that I had zero clue what they were going to be in terms of fitting into the story. And a couple months later, it was just done, and published it at the old print shop that I used to work at, and put it out. And I got a really, really great response to it. And some things happened during the making of it that helped tie the narrative together that I could have never planned. And it's exciting when stuff like that happens, when I wouldn't say I was stuck for plot elements or anything like that. It was more just certain pieces fell into my lap, and it was like, oh, this all fits together perfectly. And it seemed to work for people more so than my other stuff, because it was always very stream of consciousness, the previous Cankor work that I had done. This was a little tighter, a little more fully formed, and I felt like I had actually made a leap in terms of comic creation at that point. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Well, you should be. I think, because your style, I think, is what kind of sucks people in, and then the story work, I think, probably kind of follows that. But to me, I gravitated the first time I saw an image of your artwork. I don't even know what it was. I was like, who in the hell is this guy? I mean, I love it. I mean, I've got to learn more about him. So yeah, your style has, just really, set yourself apart from a lot of other creators that are out there. So was your goal all along to do creator-owned work? I mean, did you feel like that was always going to be your calling, and that's something that you'd want to work for one of a bigger publisher, but focus more on just things that are more personal to you?
For sure. Yeah. I remember seeing 8-Ball for the first time, and realizing that Dan Clowes did everything in that book.
Right.
And that was exciting to me, to think like, oh, he doesn't have to, answer to anybody with this. This is all purely him on the page, all the way down to the lettering and design work. And that was always my intention. And I knew early on, when I was first starting to think about making comics a career, when I was in like junior high and high school, and I would talk to my art teacher and say, I think this is maybe something I want to do. At the time, it felt like the only way to break into comics was to go work in the bullpen at Marvel or DC. And you're going to be drawing somebody else's script, and you're going to have to learn how to draw the Manhattan skyline and city buses and all these things that I just had zero interest in learning how to draw. But I kept that mindset for a very long time. It was well into my 20s of just thinking like, well, that's the only way to make comics. And I think I was it was earlier than that. I was, I think, 19 when I discovered 8-Ball. So I take that back. It wasn't fully into my 20s. But when I saw that, and it's like, okay, there are no rules. You don't have to take that route into making comics. You can do this completely on your own. So that, yeah, you're absolutely right. That was always the case with me. It was just wanting to do it myself.
Well, it's great to have that kind of inspiration, right? To see something like 8-Ball and realize that, And so you know, starting out as a young creator, that you already know, like, I want to do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what was some of the early, you know, work that you know, evolved into what you're doing today? I mean, were there other, you know, what kind of projects did you first kind of tackle to get yourself to where you're at?
Well, I was doing work that was very derivative of woodring. Anybody that was working for Fantagraphics, other
Mm-hmm.
than the Hernandez brothers, because I mean, especially Jaime was untouchable to me. Like, I'm never going to draw like him. I'm not even going to try. But some of the other artists, I felt like, well, this is more in tune with where my skill level is at, because I'm an art school dropout. So I didn't have the formative skills as an artist that I really should have at that
Mm-hmm.
point. So the expressiveness of somebody like Jim Woodring or Chester Brown, where the the idea is not to replicate real life. The idea again is not to, you know, draw buildings and whatever. You could do those things, but they don't have to be realistic and they don't have to conform to anything. So any comics that I was doing at that age was just purely from imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that stayed with me when I started working on Cankor in my 30s was everything takes place in sort of a wasteland with nothing really in the background. There's a lot of laziness involved in that, but there was also this sense of like, well, you know, I can work within the realm of an environment that is purely fantastical,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows me to just tell the stories that I want to tell without getting so bogged down with drawing a factory or something like that. But without uh, having gone through any sort of classes on how to write or how to thumbnail a story, it just never coalesced. Like, I could never get anything going. I'd have certain ideas. Okay, this character is going to be walking through the desert and he's going to be picked up by somebody in a car, and then I didn't want to draw the car, so I would move on to something else. It just took me a very long time to find elements that I could put into my comics that were easy for me to draw, just so that I could get it done.
Mm-hmm.
It took years and years for me to get to that point.
So you feel like you're looking for shortcuts through it, but in
For
doing
sure.
that, you kind of created the environment, like Tyler just mentioned. It has a feel of its own universe.
Yeah,
So through doing those things, you know, you've established, you know, a place for these characters to exist. I think that's cool. I mean, and you know, the way that you got there, because clearly, you know, I think a lot of people really enjoy it. I mean, I think that you know, there's an aesthetic with a wasteland kind of feel to a universe that, you know, you kind of know, going into it, you have like preconceived ideas of what these stories might be about, but then
sure.
to really see where you take things is what I think makes everything so much more special.
Yeah. Well, and there were things that I saw without even consciously saying, well, this is what I'm doing. Harriman's King Cat comics,
Yeah.
you know, they're all taking place in this valley with these, you know, vaguely desert type rock formations and stuff like that. And then the thing that really inspired me that I didn't think about till much later was the artwork that was on the Masters of the Universe um, uh, packaging and the little comics that would come in. All those He-Man stories took place in some sort of weird wasteland. Occasionally there'd be, you know, some castle out in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, how are these people getting to this?
Mm-hmm.
And you realize, you know, that the people that were making those toys were just coming up with anything just to throw in the packaging. There wasn't necessarily a specific thought like, well, this is where He-Man lives. That all came later. So it's the same idea I used when I started doing the Cankor stories.
Sure. You mentioned Harriman, so I figured
Yeah.
might as well show some Crazy Cat here.
Yeah, that one was a lot of fun to do.
But yeah, you're right. Exactly. It's a wasteland kind of feel, or desolate. You know, lots of space. around them. So no, I mean Harriman, when I was kind of, I don't do a whole lot of research before I start an interview, but I was like trying to go through the list of artists that I think about when I look at your work, and Harriman was one of the people, because yeah, I have a couple Harriman books. I've always been a huge admirer of his work. I'll never be able to own a piece of his artwork,
Sure.
but yeah, his style for that time period, you know, in the early 1900s, to become, you know, kind of fashion that world is just amazing to me. The you know, the creative genius that he was. So that, and then I saw this piece on over on Inky Knuckles when I was looking at some artwork. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But so you know, kind of leading up to that though, yeah, well, you know what, I have to ask you this other question, because I'm seeing all this art on the back wall, and it's making me curious. You know, do you collect? And you know, those pieces on the back wall, which, you know, who are they by?
I mean, collect. I maybe buy a piece a year.
Yeah.
So behind me, I've got the first piece that I bought in the upper corner back there is a Paul Galassi piece from a Valkyrie comic miniseries, and I got that from Anthony's Comic Art at Heroes Con one year. I think the page was like $100, and I asked if they would take 75, which they did. And I hadn't even read the comic at the time. It just was it had this really cool image of a guy in a spiked helmet in the middle of the page. And that got the ball rolling in terms of me really wanting art. I would love to be able to afford more art. Beneath it is an Alex Nino marker drawing of a cybernetic werewolf.
Is that blue? The one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Blue
that was,
creature.
yeah, Rich
there.
Danny's was just asking what was the blue figure.
Okay. Yeah. I got that from his website. He's had some great stuff up there, and I was really happy to get that. It was very inexpensive. I think it was like $4.50. And then to the, I guess, right or left of that is a Jim Woodring page from Weathercraft.
Oh, wow.
Featuring the Manhog character, who's my favorite character. And that was a piece. My wife and I came into some money with something. I don't know if it was an income tax return or we got something back after we sold a house or something, or refinanced. And she's like, go ahead and buy, you know, you've been wanting some art. And there was this piece that was on eBay for a long, long time. And I went back to it and was like, I hope it's still there. And it was from Scott Eder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was very happy to get that. I have another wood ring, also from the Weathercraft second edition, which is that chicken thing right behind me here. Underneath is a Michel Fife piece that I got from him at Heroes Con. And then up above is a Rudy Nebris Batman.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
I love Nebris's ink work. I mean,
oh, it's amazing.
Whether it's all black and white or when he does color pieces, he's just an amazing guy.
It's insane. Yeah, and that piece, I went by his table, and it was the first day of Heroes Con, and I ran to the ATM. I was like, I have to get this before somebody else snags it.
So were you at Heroes this year?
Not this year.
Okay.
No, my book came out the weekend of. I got the shipment of all my pallets of books that same weekend, so I couldn't make it.
Okay, because I saw Cam there, but I didn't remember seeing you there. So
Yeah.
I would be kicking myself if I managed to miss that. But I hadn't been to Heroes in about 10 years, and so this was our first trip back there. But it's going to be a regular gig for us now. I mean, we had probably was one of the biggest original art collector turnouts we've probably ever had was at the show this year.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, it was kind of our coming out party after the pandemic.
Nice.
That was our rallying point was Heroes. It was fun. It was a really great show. I think everybody walked away with art, sold some art, bought art. It was a good time.
Yep. Yeah, I remember my first Heroes. I was selling pages for like $50 each, $75 each. And I sold all of them that show, and people were telling me, like, handing me the money and like, you know, you're really undercharging for these pieces. I was just happy that anybody was buying my work at the time.
Right. Well, that's Tyler, I know, is a big fan of your work, but yeah, well, that's that's kind of the story you get from most artists, right? They're just happy to have people at least be interested, and then the then usually you start to figure it out, or a rep comes in and helps you figure things out. And
yeah,
I mean, the next thing you know, yeah. But yeah, that's good. Cam's a good guy. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, he's helped me tremendously. Couldn't be happier with Inky Knuckles.
Rich Danny said he likes the original Moon Maiden painting that you owned.
Yeah, I snagged that. It was just it's like 1.2 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, back in the day, he's had it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I actually used to have a print of that back in the 70s or 80s. I can't remember, but I love Frazetta, so I've had so many art books from him over the years. I think I've gotten rid of all of them in this recent moves that I got, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I grew up on Frazetta. For me, I always loved like gaming art, spot illustration stuff. So even today, when I buy art, I'd say it's probably about like 60% comic art and 40% illustration art, just because I still love just the different types of things, whether it's for gaming art or heck, I picked up some editorial cartoons. Just I don't know, I kind of dig things that are not totally mainstream. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I just got I forgot about this. I got some Frank Robbins newspaper strip art.
Oh, sweet.
I think this was also from Anthony.
It's funny. I've been seeing some Frank Robbins strip art around lately, a little more than I've seen in the past, and I don't own anything.
Yeah, this is what is his name? Johnny Hazard. I'm completely unfamiliar with the strip, but I loved this last panel here of the woman's foot, and it just did a great job on the shoe. It was really inexpensive, and then grabbed a Jack Davis.
Oh, sweet!
It's from like an animation cell or something.
Yeah,
those are my most recent pieces that I bought.
Well, those both of those artists are on my list to get. I've always wanted something by Robbins. He's somebody who gosh, he was so prolific. I mean, there's so much of his work out there. Yeah. So I'm gonna make a note to remind myself I should get something soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually think there's some in Comic Art Live today when I was browsing around. Somebody's got one. It's probably Anthony. Knowing
that's
him.
Where I got these. Yeah.
Yeah, he's always got some kind of strip art. He's one of the few dealers that gets a lot of that material.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is great. I've been on the lookout for some Pat Boyette art. He had some in his last update that I wasn't super familiar with. Nice pages, but it's one of those things where I feel like I should hold out and get something that's definitely in line with my sensibilities. I think these were maybe Westerns or war. I think it was a war story, and I'm not super big on war comics.
Right. No, I don't blame you on that. I've never been. There's some artists whose work I really like, but I mean, I'm just not into. I don't know why. I'm not was never a big war comics fan growing up.
Sure.
But yeah, so for some artists, that's hard to kind of find something that doesn't fit that genre.
Definitely.
Even with Joe Kubert, right? I mean, but the only thing I can probably afford is something from the war genre. I'd love to get a Hawkman page or something from Brave and Bold or something really iconic like that. But but in his case, I'll probably have to end up settling for a war page or two one day.
And they're going to be great pages regardless. But yeah,
it's all about having a good example, right? From certain creators. That's how I used to collect a lot of commissions early on, and as I've matured, I've been going after more published pages, as a collector. And my goal is just to get really, really good examples from as many artists as I possibly can. And I don't know, somehow I managed to never pick anything up by Kubert or Jack Davis. Another, I mean, I really have always wanted, and I see stuff, like that piece that you just showed, smaller pieces, just haven't found the right piece yet. But it's kind of part of the fun. The chase is always just looking and seeing and kind of mentally noting, like you said, when you knew that the Woodring piece was on eBay, you had seen it a few times, finally came into some money. Hey, whenever I would get my income tax check back, I usually spent it on art too.
Oh yeah, and that's one of those things where if you can't afford it at the time, it's best just to block it out of your mind because you would obsess about it. There's a piece right now I don't even want to say what it is, but I've been looking at it for a good year
Mm-hmm.
and just waiting for the point where I can snatch it. And I know it eventually, once I do get the money to get it, it'll be gone, and I'll just have to think about something else. There was I think Albert Moy, he had uh, Gene Colan Tomb of Dracula page,
Mm.
and I'd seen it at C2E2, and it had a guy in an iron lung, and he's holding some weird little doll. He had like an arm that came out of the iron lung, and it was a really cool page, and it wasn't that expensive. And I was like, oh, I'll get that next time. And then the pandemic happens, and so of course I'm not seeing him at shows, but he had it up on his page.
Mm.
And I just kept telling myself, like, oh, I'll wait. Nobody else is going to want that page. Nobody's going to care about it. Doesn't even have Dracula in it. So I didn't worry about it. And then I finally had the money for it. I go to get it, and somebody bought all of his Tomb of Dracula pages. Every single one he had. They're all gone. So
I talk a lot about that on the on my shows where there's certain artworks that I would go back and revisit at a dealer's site, and for a year, and you kind of feel like you own it. You keep thinking, I'm going to pull the trigger one of these days. I'm going to pull the trigger, and then when you're ready to pull the trigger, it's gone.
Yep.
And that happens all the time. That's yeah. I mean, I can think of probably like 5 pieces that I on 5 different dealer websites that I go back and regularly check and see, is it still there?
Mm-hmm.
One of these days I should either make an offer or just buy it or stop going back and looking at it, because you like I say, you look at it for so long, you feel like you own it. It's yours. But but I think I picked up a Keith Pollard page, inked by Joe Sinnott, from Catskill Comics about 6 months ago, that I'd looked at for literally a year and a half. And I finally I was like, I have to do it. I mean, I've been looking at it for too long. It's like I'd go back to a site like once a month, and I'd look at that artwork, and I'm like, why haven't I bought this yet?
Yeah.
And then I'd move on. Oh, I gotta save money. So yeah, no, I know how that goes. But a wood ring piece, so that's cool. And you got it from Eater. I would have actually said, yeah, Scott would be the guy that would have that. Scott's he's got a eclectic taste.
Sure.
I love checking out his website.
Yeah, and you go and see his table at a show, and it's just like everything's just stacked up. There's no order to it. It's not usually in binders. And he had a Charles Burns drawing of Tim and Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at this thing, and I think it was like $850, and that was all the money I had at that point. I was like, if I buy this, I'm completely wiped out. I have the money, but that's it. And I don't know how I'm going to explain this to my wife of like, hey, just so you know, my checking account's empty, but I got this great Tim and Eric drawing. And he was trying to sell me another piece. I can't remember what it was. It was another artist I'd never even heard of, but it was this really nice, it almost looked like strip art. I can't remember the artist's name, but he's published by Fantagraphics. Highly detailed stuff. It's always his stories seem to take place in Depression era. A lot of hobos, people jumping off of trains, that sort of thing. And I was just really struck by this one piece. And Scott said, he's like, if you agree to buy that from me, I will give you a deal that you won't believe. But you have to agree to buy it for me to tell you how much it's going to be. And I'm like, I don't know how that works. Like, right. Like, I don't know you well enough to
you're going to sign on the dotted line without knowing what the agreement is. Yeah.
That's the piece wasn't, it was decently priced to begin with, but whatever this deal was that he was going to give me, I just had to agree to it flat out without knowing what the number was. And I walked away from it, and who knows what.
George Hodge was mentioned. Tony Millionaire, was that the artist, or
no?
I'm thinking of the style.
No, it was. Gosh, what is this guy's name?
Actually, I had Scott's site loaded up. I should look through it.
Yeah, I can't think of what the artist's name is, but again, he's been in anthologies through Fantagraphics.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like his first name is Tim.
I'll look around.
Yeah.
No, Rich says Al Columbia. No.
Nope.
Let's see. Well, we'll figure it out. But I get you. But I do love, Scott's a nice guy. Definitely, somebody I've known for a really long time too. But he loves so many interesting artists that,
Sure.
and it's nice to have somebody out there who kind of focuses in on the underground genre or that kind of thing. And I agree. When you go to his table, he is one of the few dealers that has those big tables set out in front of the back wall, and you really have to kind of pour over everything because it's all flat. And it's all in piles in some cases, depending on how much art he has for that artist or title. So we're getting lots of names. Tim Lane. Yeah, that's who it is. There we go.
And I'll be honest with you, the reason why I didn't buy it was because I was unfamiliar with him at the time. Thank you, David. I knew that if I bought it, I was going to have to go buy all his work. And I'm like, I can't, because I have that obsessive nature of like, okay, I bought this person's art. I'm going to have to buy every comic they've ever published. And so that was what kept me from getting it.
Oh yeah. So I had actually check out some pieces by Tim Lane since I was on Scott's site. Yeah, I can see Tim's artwork is pretty darn amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. See, I'm looking at a piece now and I'm thinking I should own that one.
Okay.
Oh, this is bad. See,
I know. Sorry.
I'm thinking we'll just be talking about your art. Now you're kind of steering me in other directions.
Yeah, sorry. I derailed the conversation. Apologies.
Oh, that is all right. And hey, I'm pretty sure I put the link to your page on Inky Knuckles on the show description, but I'll throw it in the chat too, just so for those who are in the chat right now, if you wanted to kind of look at some of Matt's work that is up there, a bunch of commissioned examples are out there. You don't have a lot for sale on Inky Knuckles right now, right? Just a few pieces, or
I don't. Yeah, all the Cankor pages are gone.
Yep.
Because I'd been selling those myself each time I put out an issue, and then I gave everything that I had to Cam when I signed up with him, and I don't think I have anything up there right now.
What's your website address? Maybe I put it in the description, but maybe not.
It's cankorcomic.com. And right now it's set up just to take you to my big cartel page. There's really not a whole lot up there at the moment.
Okay. I will throw that in the chat as well. Yeah, I don't think I've been on your site before. I don't know why. That doesn't. All right. Well, now I've got to.
It's not like there's not a billion other artists and comics, and there's a lot out there to look at.
Well, all right. Yeah, well, that's true. It does take you over to Big Cartel where you can pick up you got some Cankor, let's see, some prints and a sketchbook.
Yes,
the collected edition too. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm running a pre-holiday sale right now, so I've got everything discounted for the most part, or bundles, and I do have an option right now to do a remarked version where I'll draw Cankor on the front page. In order to get caught up on commissions and the story that I'm working on, I'm going to stop doing those at the end of the month.
All right. Well, I'm going to pick one of those up.
Nice.
As soon as this is over.
Cool. So, awesome.
But yeah, so I would encourage anybody else as well to go ahead and do that. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love getting remark books. So yeah, that's very cool.
Thank you.
So what's on your drawing table, right now? What are you working on?
Right now I've got a story that I'm commissioned to work on through Metal Hurlant. They have been publishing for the past few years. I haven't seen any issues of Metal Hurlant in the stores, although they told me that they do an English version as well as the French version. So the story that I'm doing right now will be translated into French. It'll come out in Europe, and then there'll be an English version available later next year. So that's on my drawing table now. I have to have that finished by December 9th. And I'm pretty excited about it. The theme is monsters, but it's not like traditional monsters. It's monstrous behavior, essentially, in terms of like how you internalize being a monster. So anything that you do yourself that you feel like, I'm a pretty horrible person for thinking this or doing this. So mine revolves around like violent media, watching, really violent movies, and then eating meat. and the guilt around being a carnivore. And so it takes place in a slaughterhouse. When I was talking about drawing factories, I've now written myself a story where I have to draw this food processing plant with all these creatures hanging from hooks, getting slaughtered and whatnot.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
No, I'm totally. I want to see the art. I mean, I can't wait. So, when is it going to be out? You said mid-December.
Well, that's when it's due. I have to have the artwork to
you have to have it
them.
turned in.
So I believe they're publishing it in spring of 2023.
Oh wow, we got a long way to wait. All right.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the art from that.
Nice.
That's going to be. I mean,
I put a few sneak previews up on my Instagram page. I don't know. I haven't asked them how much I can show people, but I might put like a page up on my website when I redo my gallery.
all right. Well, I'm not a big Instagram guy, but I will. I'm making a note to check it out. But yeah, that sounds like you're drawing to your strengths, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in that regard, I can only picture what these creatures hanging from the meat hooks must look like.
Yeah, I will. I'll see what I can do in terms of getting some preview pages out there. See what they'll allow me to do. If I can do like the first, it's a 9-page story, so I'm hoping like I could do like maybe a 3-page preview. So we'll see.
Okay. Chris Spanabel asks, "Can you talk about Micron? What is it?"
Oh, the Sakura Micron pens. It's an archival ink, and basically, really, I think what they're supposed to do is replicate the line that you would get from like a rapidograph.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more. I don't want to say it's a deadline. That's not really accurate, but like you could see somebody like Terry Austin using a micron to ink with. Where you've got a line that just is very straight and just ends very abruptly. Mine don't do that. Mine feather. The only other person that I see that gets a feathered line off of a micron is Matt Lesniewski. And I don't understand what he's doing. Like people will say to me, like, I don't understand how you get that line out of a micron. I'm like, well, you need to see Matt Lesniewski because he's doing ungodly stuff with microns.
Yeah, I was going to switch and just show some of the commission examples that are up on Cam's site, but yes, that's awesome. That is so awesome, and that's that's like you have that like a scratch board feel to it. Even when it's all I don't know how you work like that because my brain does not work in that direction as far as like looking at the figure and thinking I'm going to be highlighting it in the way that you're doing there. And working with the blacks like you are. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's and that's I think for me when I look at artwork, I like artwork that challenges me to think about how the artist came drew the piece. I love seeing process stuff, and with your work definitely that's what it makes me think more about it. It's not like you can get a commission from anybody, right? And kind of know what you're going to get. If I were to commission you, I don't think I could even fathom what it might look like. Whether if I was asking for a Darth Vader or a Wolverine or whatever, with you, I don't know what to expect because I think you're going to kind of take it. You're going to put your own spin on it, something that excites you. Because I'm sure that approaching something like this, you have to kind of have your, how you view this character and what you want to put into it. And I just think that you have a very unique perspective to begin with. So, yeah, I mean, and that would be why I would be excited to commission you, just because I just wouldn't have any idea what would come back. But I know whatever it is, I'm going to love it.
Thanks. I just, one of the pieces that I'm working on the latest commission list is an Indiana Jones, which when I first signed up with Cam, I was like, just so you know, like I'm really uncomfortable with likenesses. And then realized after I said that, I was like, well, this is a challenge for me because I need to open myself up to that. And initially I was going to tell him, like, I don't want to do any likenesses whatsoever. So if somebody wants Doctor Who or, some famous actor, like I don't want to do that. But then I realized, like, well, they're not expecting me to draw that person photorealistically. That's not
Right.
why they've commissioned me. So the idea of having to make the character look exactly like they do in real life, I quickly understood like that's not the goal. And it really opened me up to try different things. So like the Indiana Jones one, I'm really excited about because I've got an idea for incorporating some elements that I think will make it really fun and interesting, and not just a standard indie cracking a whip or something like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, if somebody's commissioning you, they want your interpretation of whatever character they want. I mean, I've heard of commission mishaps in the past where somebody's asked, hey, do a cover recreation of of an artist who's got a very stylized feel. And when the commission came back, they drew it in the style of the artist who drew the original.
Yeah.
That's not why you commission somebody. I mean, even whether it's a cover recreation or something else, you want it in their style. It's weird how something got lost interpretation and it came back like that. And I remember the collector was just like, oh, that was not what I wanted. I wanted the way you would draw it. I didn't want it's a line for line feel, as if you were recreating it. That wasn't the end goal. So
it's a difficult thing. I was very comfortable doing cover recreations early on because a lot of the heavy lifting is done for you in terms of the composition. But then when you get somebody like Brian Boland, I did the Dark Judges from Judge Dredd, this classic image of the four of them. And it was difficult because I did find myself at times really following the original Boland layout.
Right.
And the poses, it's so difficult because it's perfection when you look at that piece. I mean, everything that Boland does, everything is right where it should be. So on the one hand, you feel as though you're doing them a disservice if you veer too far away from what was originally done. But as you said, you don't want to just completely mimic everything. So I hoped on that piece that I got a good enough balance between what I do and what was there in the original piece without it feeling like I was simply just mimicking what was originally done by Boland.
Right. I mean, an example with Brian's work, I mean, you're right. I mean, he's the way he drew that pose with those four characters, it's etched in your brain. I mean, you can't think of them in any other way. It's hard, and I'm sure, but I can see how that can be a challenge. But yeah, I think the biggest trick with commissions is always, as a buyer, is always kind of giving your best. You want to give enough direction so that there's a good understanding of what your hopes are, and then but you kind of have to leave a lot of creative freedom out there. Because at the end of the day, you might not, especially like characters that might have different costumes or different looks over the years. I mean, how many different ways has the Thing been drawn, right?
Oh,
from whether it was John Byrne or Jack Kirby, or the way they've looked on camera. Michael Chiklis in that kind of soft, lumpy looking thing. I mean, so if you're going to commission a character like that, you got to say, this is the one I want. I want a Joe Sinnott Thor, or not Thor, Thing. And it is tricky. But see, the X-Men piece, I would never have guessed. I mean, I hadn't looked at this one before, so that's cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I had a little run of X-Men characters there for a while. The one thing I noticed, like looking at this now, when you see it in more or less thumbnail format, my eyesight is horrible, and it's only getting worse year after year. So because I do so much detail work, there are elements that become very funky because I'm not necessarily going back and looking at the macro view of the piece. And it was very frustrating initially when I started doing the commission work. Was I felt like, when you break this, reduce this down to a thumbnail, the composition maybe is a little bit wonky or whatever. But I had to tell myself to lean into that and say, okay, of course it's going to be wonky. You can't see. You've got horrible eyesight. Just let that be what it is. The characters are going to look funky because a lot of the artists that I really, really like draw super funky. Gene Colan, his anatomy was way out of whack in most cases. Pat Boyette was another one. Carmine Infantino had super wonky anatomy. So it creates this weird dynamic where I've got this super high detailed stuff, but then the structure of it isn't correct. If that, if there is such a thing as a correct drawing.
Well, I was going to ask you about the glass because I think I saw a pair on the back table, and you've got glasses on. I don't know. It's something I thought of when he first came on camera. I'm like, wow, you have a lot of
more often than not. My glasses are off when I'm drawing, and I'm like this to the page. Like, I tend not to wear my glasses when I'm drawing.
Makes sense. So, but yes, you saw some of the comments about you need to get all these commission drawings in some kind of sketchbook or something. Put them all into an art book, and then George Hodge reminded everybody that you've got a great first sketchbook on your big cartel.
Yep. Yeah, and that's on sale right now too. Yeah.
And that's part of that bundle.
You can get it by itself. I think I've got it up there right now for $10. It's 28 pages, I think. Or you can get it in the bundle. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I saw it here, right?
Yeah, the pile of spent microns.
Got it. Pile of spent micron sketchbook. Yeah, that's cool. But the bundle with the hand-drawn portrait is sold out. You can't get that one anymore.
Oh, shoot. I need to update that because that shouldn't be the case. I must have not changed the quantity on that. Okay.
Yeah, I run an online store too, and I've had a few mistakes myself. So it's still, that one is still available. I'm
going to have to change that as soon as we get off here. I'm glad I saw that.
Well, there you go, everybody. Yeah, because I was just going to get this one because I figured that was the only way I was going to be able to get the remark. But if I can get that one,
as soon as we get off here, I'll update that. Yeah, I think on Big Cartel, I could be wrong. I think when you first set up a new product, it just goes to a quantity of one, and then you have to see it's either unlimited or tell it what quantity. So I must not have done that. Shoot, no wonder. I was like, how come nobody's ordering this bundle?
Well, I'm glad we pulled it up. Yeah, I saw that right away. I was like, oh shoot, that's the one I would have picked.
Okay.
So I figured I was gonna have to cherry pick a few things to get everything. All right, cool. Let's see. Let me switch back to where was I at? Nope, that's my art. All right. Oh, this is cool too, man. This is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's another one. Lovecraft has such a distinct face, and it's all of the elements there scream Lovecraft without it being an exact portrait of what Lovecraft looks like. I knew I wasn't going to completely nail his personages in there,
but see, it's cool because somebody was like, I wanna see your version of this guy.
Yeah.
Right, because that's the classic photo of Lovecraft. But and again, it's so I like this piece because you have the blacks are so flat, like it's kind of part of your style. But I love all the the tick marks in there, and how that kind of juxtaposed against all the crazy, insane Cthulhu mess of tentacles and everything. I mean, it's got a skull on it too. I'm not allowed to have skulls here in my house, unfortunately. But I love this piece.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see. Oh, and there you go. Even trying your hand at Spider-Man and Venom.
Yeah, every time I draw Spider-Man, I just wonder, why did they choose to put all this webbing on here and these poor inkers that have to do this on a monthly basis? I don't understand it.
Yeah, that was funny. I was watching Ryan Benjamin sketch last night in one of the panels that we did, and it was like he put the webbing in last, and at first I was like, why is he ever going to put the webbing in?
Mm-hmm.
And I would assume that that's probably like the way many pencilers or inkers approach it. It's like, yep, I'm just going to save the hard part for the last thing I do.
Yeah.
Tyler says no Lovecraft for me. It's actually one of my favorite writers. I have as far as fiction books, I think I've probably got more Lovecraft in my in my library here at the house than any
Oh,
other
okay.
writer. Yeah, I've just always enjoyed his writing as I don't know, as odd as it is at times, but yeah, see, this is a cover recreation. You didn't follow the original, you
Hmm.
know, you got a little bit, but it's all you. I mean,
Yeah.
shoot, that is awesome. Ah. See, nobody, no, the thing is, you know, it's always hard to create new, what you want to say, species or
Hmm.
and yours are so haunting, you know, the imagery. I mean, they just are. I feel like if I ran into, you know, some of the creatures from, you know, and characters from your drawings, I mean, I would feel, you know, I'd be frightened, and you don't really feel that. I mean, you know, you look at a lot of art, whether, you know, like I said, I love illustration art. Sometimes it's just like, I love a good monster drawing, right? But I look
Hmm.
at yours and I think those are beings, or, you know, that I just would never want to run into anywhere. You know, it's just they're frightening. I mean, I don't know if, and if I don't know if that's your, you know, your intent. You're hoping to convey that through both your style and then your just creative, you know, creatively when you're putting that in there. But for me, that's the emotion that you know, I get from looking at your art, and it makes me appreciate it and enjoy it even more.
That's great to hear, because that is the intent. I always feel like, you know, the work that I've been most impacted by is stuff that initially really repulsed me.
Mhm.
So, you know, somebody like Hideshi Hino, I remember getting
Yeah,
Panorama of Hell, and I got rid of the book because I was so upset by it. This was in high school, and I worked at a comic book store, and I ordered it, and I'm flipping through it, and I brought it home. I'm like, I don't even know if I want this, but I
yeah.
kept looking at it, and then I gave it to a friend, and then like a year later, I was like, can I get that book back? Because I wanted to look at it more. Chester Brown is another person who, first time I saw it, the Happy Clown, I was like, oh, this makes me feel weird. So if my work can make people feel a little uncomfortable, then thanks, George. Um, then I've done my job.
No, yeah, trust me. That's what you get from it. I think that's, and whether people can communicate that, or, you know, it creates that emotion, I think, in people, even if they, you know, they're not really fully aware of it. But I mean, yeah, no, that's what I got from the moment I saw whatever that first drawing of yours was. It was just like, I
Mhm.
gotta know more about this, because I'd never seen anything quite like it. So yeah, I mean, I look at this piece. I wish I owned this piece. This is crazy. This is beautiful.
Thank you. Well, the
Okay.
other the work that I'm doing after this Metal Hurlant story, I have
Mhm.
a horror comic called Sweet Sepulcher that I'm going to be. I've already started on. I've actually written this thing. It's one of the first comics where I've actually sat down and plotted the whole comic. So we'll see how that goes, because normally it's just a free for all. I'm just, you know,
Mhm.
making stuff up as I go along. But this is something that I've been sitting on for about a year, and I've got pages in there that I am hoping it will definitely, you know, disturb people. Is definitely the intent with this new book. So
Well, it's good to know that, you know, it's not just your style. You have intent to
yeah,
disturb.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the power of a creator, right? I mean, to really kind of twist their audience, and you know that's what they want, right? And
Sure.
for you to find more unique ways and different ways to craft a story, and the illustrations to kind of get that same uh, feeling to come out
Hmm.
through your artwork. I mean, it's got to be challenging but fun. And do you, when you put something new out there like that, do you just kind of wait to see what the reviews are? How do you get excited, nervous? Or just do you just go into something just feeling so confident that, you know, when you know you've done a good job, it's, you know, you feel great about when it's put to bed.
It goes back and forth. I mean, you know, that anamnesis story, I remember reading it once and crying after I read it. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. This is amazing. Like
Mhm.
I actually pulled it off this time. And then I set it aside. And then the next morning I got up and I read it. I was like, this is horrible. What are you thinking?
Oh, no.
This is the worst thing you've done. And so it just, you know, it's always that way. And every artist I talk to goes through similar things. I think even the most accomplished artist feels a little bit of trepidation when they put new work out. in terms of how people. So for me, the solution is just start working on the next thing immediately. Just put it out. Don't think about it. Don't really worry about what people are saying about it. And fortunately, I've gotten a lot of great feedback on my work. So I don't know what I would do if I got a lot of negative critiques, but fortunately that hasn't been the case. So I'm pretty lucky there.
No, well, it's all the praise and respect that you've gotten. I think it's completely well deserved.
Thank you.
A lot of good comments in here. I thought I agree with Rich, as did George. He said he always sees a night sky in those Cankor faces. It's true.
Yeah, and all those little dots I hand draw, which is the stupidest thing, because I could just fill it all in black and then just put little pops of white there, but I sit there and hand draw every little circle. But it's meditative. That's the other thing too, is that technique it just becomes very meditative for me.
Well, you mentioned that you kind of that's one of your ways of focusing, right? Just kind of relaxing. Yeah, I think that that's cool. I've never been able to do that. I'm kind of like I don't know. I don't have that in me, but I think that it works well for you. I mean, and it comes through in your drawings too. Now that I understand your process, that's great.
Thanks.
George said sweet sep, definitely horrifying.
Okay, yeah. This new one, I had done 2 mini comics called Sweet Sepulcher, which just had this random stuff in it, and this one is a long form story. Should be about 48 pages. It incorporates Dr. Frederick Wortham, 70s, 60s, and 70s underground comics, and then like Warren comics, like 1984, Vampirella, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an end to it all that ties it into the 90s speculator boom. And I won't say how these things all coalesce, but I've somehow managed to incorporate those 3 elements into a single story. So should at least be fun to read, I'm hoping. So.
Well, it sounds pretty cool to me. And I missed that whole 90s thing. I stopped buying comics in 91 and then started buying again in like 98. So I didn't know what a chromium cover was or what the Age of Apocalypse was. And, it was a void for me. So.
Well, I was 18 in 91 and I worked at a comic book store, and it was so disheartening to see all that stuff happening. And luckily that's the height of when Fantagraphics and all those companies were really starting to give you a true alternative to that. So I completely shifted focus to alternative comics.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I hate to tell you this, we're kind of at the end of our hour. Okay. But Matt, this has been, this has been a lot of fun. I would definitely, and if we ever, maybe a year from now, it'd be cool to have you back on and just talk about what you've done in the last year. I mean, I'd love to do that, because it sounds like you have many fun things that are coming out that I think people are going to be really excited to see. And I mean, do you typically, with any of these upcoming projects, when the original art is available, does it go through Inky Knuckles, or do you use it? Does some of it go to the big cartel, or how do you kind of mix, the work that you sell out in online?
Any of the actual comic pages will go through Cam with Inky Knuckles, and then when I was doing my fundraiser, I offered pieces through the fundraiser, and every now and then I'll get with Cam. If I do some marker drawings, I'll just sell those through Instagram. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So follow you on Instagram. Make sure you're subscribed to Inky Knuckles mailing list. Those sorts of things are going to be the best way to kind of keep tabs on when your art's available.
Yeah, for sure.
And what about commission lists? I know that there's commission examples on Inky Knuckles. How often do you take commission lists?
I did a flip-flop recently with my commission list because of the way, like, this whole year went completely in the opposite direction I was anticipating. Mm-hmm. So we quietly opened a commission list about 2 months ago, maybe. And so I've been working on those. I'll probably open another commission list, I would say late winter, early spring. So in the next 4 months, probably get another commission list open.
All right. Well, then that's another reason for people in the chat and viewing this later to get on the mailing list with Cam, or even, you know what, sometimes it's always a good idea to email, you know, the rep in advance saying, hey, if a list ever opens up, keep my name on the list. Because, you know, like you said, if it's quietly open, sometimes that's the only group that finds out that there was an opportunity. So, I mean, we all know as collectors, we kind of have to be as savvy and as we can to kind of make sure that we get those opportunities when they come up. So Matt, again, thank you so much, man. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm envious. I've been trying to figure out what color to paint my back wall, and I kind of I was actually leaning towards an orange, but a real, like a kind of a dark orange. But I mean, that green is pretty good too. I don't know if I haven't settled on it because I've only been here 2 months. That's why I have no art on the wall. I've been waiting to figure out what is that color I'm going to paint my back wall. But whatever it has to be as stark. You know, yours that is a green that is, you know, unmistakable. My last place had purple, and it was, you know, it's like plum like color. So but I can't do the purple again, so I got to do something else. That's
orange sounds good though. I would like almost a burnt orange.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. No, that's what I was looking at when I was at Home Depot last month, and I'm like, I really like this color. I mean, I'm scared of it though. It's like if you buy it, that's a commitment. You know?
That's how it was with the screen for sure. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Pea soup green says Rich Danny's. Yeah. You gotta, you're going to live with it for a while. Cause
I look at it every single day.
All right, man. Well, listen, again, this is a lot of fun. And, thanks as well to Cam for, hooking us up. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And thanks for everybody for checking it out.
Well, I'm going to look up that show. Where did I write it down? Let me just mention it again, because I'm going to close it. I Blackbird in Maitland. And then you said it was in March, right?
Yeah, first weekend of March. And I feel awful because I cannot remember the full name of the shop. I know the first part of it is Blackbird.
Got it. Yeah, here it is. Blackbird Comics and Coffee House in Maitland, Florida.
Yep.
So, yeah, you know what I'll do is I'll try to find the page that references what they're doing at the beginning of March, and I'll link that into the show description after we're done here.
Great. Perfect.
So I will look forward to seeing you then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me too.
All right. Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. I think we have Greg Land in the next panel with Ken from 4C. But again, thanks again, Matt. And thanks for everybody for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun as always.